Alright, so it is 7:15 on Tuesday, September 3rd, 2019, and we just had our closed session that started at 6 p.m. and just ended a little earlier, and we have a couple items from the Rising Report.
So the first motion is resolved that council directs staff to proceed as discussed in closed session.
Mover and seconder for that. Deputy Mayor Hendricks and Councillor Brody. All those in favor? Opposed, and that's carried.
And the last one is resolved that council supports the alternative form of security in lieu of a letter of credit, and that the proposed alternative form of security is deemed sufficient as it provides the necessary protection to the township for 28610 Center Road, subject to confirmation of the Strathroy Caradoc bylaws, and the security be registered and entitled under PPSA.
Mover and seconder, Councillor McKinnon and Councillor Clark. All those in favor? Opposed, and that's carried. Okay. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? I just have the one, and that was in regards to the closed session under section 289 2C, which is the Napier Schoolhouse, and my wife is the secretary treasurer with the Napier Women's Institute, and that's the building that they've used since 1962. Moving on, approval of the minutes, and that was from August 12th, 2019. By Councillor McKinnon, seconded by Councillor Brody. All those in favor? Opposed, and that's carried. And that brings us up to time for our first delegation. We have Fort County's Health Service Foundation here for a presentation, and just before the meeting we had the check presentation of the I believe it was for $5,000. I was on this side of the check instead of the other side, so I wasn't sure. So anyways, we're going to come forward and yeah, you can hit the lights if you want to make the presentation a little more clear on the wall.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm glad to be here this evening to speak on behalf of the foundation. I am Tom Jeffrey, the chair, and with me I have Steph Willette, who is MHA VP of Strategic Partnerships, and our very capable administrative assistant, Martha Wartner, who keeps us on track and keeps things rolling at the foundation. Just want to give you a brief update. We don't want to keep you as long. I think we were here last year and presented, but I know there are some new councillors this year, so we wanted to bring you up to date. Just wanted a couple of important things to note is since we started in 1987, that was when the foundation was formed, we have turned over $8 million to the Fort County's health services. So it's a tremendous amount of work and a tremendous amount to have been able to put forward and help the hospital. This year we're into our what we call our spring appeal, and then we go into our fall appeal once we go out and send out our newsletter in there. But quite a bit of the stuff has been completed. There's just 3 or 4 items, 6 items left to be completed in the purchasing. So everything is moving along very well, and of course the money that you've turned over to us today will go towards that appeal and help us out in that. Last year's money, I don't really use, we're not, Curtis maybe informed you, but that money all went towards the endoscopy campaign that we were into last year. So, and that brings us to what we're proud to reintroduce and get going back at the hospital is this campaign. And as you can see, it's quite a complex. I don't know, some of you councillors weren't there at that presentation, but it's a very complex piece of equipment that's involved, and we're hoping by the end of this year we will have completed over 500 scopes at the hospital, which is a tremendous service and relief to a lot of other hospitals and places in the community. So we thank you for being a part of that and helping us out with that campaign. And to date, through donations to the golf tournament and donations to the foundation, we want to thank you for your total of $26,761. So thank you for that. And now I'm going to turn it over to Steph to give you a little bit of an update on the hospital and things that are going on within what we call the village.
Thank you, Tom. Mayor Smith, councillors, good evening. It's always a pleasure to come back and speak to this wonderful group who's been very generous and supportive. The endoscopy campaign, as Tom mentioned, has been successful. We fundraised $450,000 in about 9 months. which through generally about 20 donors, whether they're corporate donors, municipal donors, mutual fund insurance companies, 20 donors contributed the vast bulk of that $450,000. So that's a huge testament to the rural support for healthcare in your community. So thank you on behalf. You are one of those participants, and we really appreciate that. So thank you again. So I want to cover off 2 quick topics. I am mindful of your time. Brief update on the hospital. Again, back to having new audience and new members around the table. Just bring a sense of awareness. That's what we're all about. And a brief update on our health village. So in terms of the hospital, so who we are, I always have these magic numbers on my screen for presentations. The number 8 represents the number of departments that we have at our hospital at 4 counties. We have inpatient care, emerge care, we do diagnostics through x-ray, ultrasound. We have a reliable rehab department. We do ambulatory care where specialists come from London and other parts like cardiologists. We have a palliative care suite, and we have community support services like adult day programs, as well as the diabetes education center. The number 23,000 is oftentimes used, and what that represents is the catchment area of 4 counties. So it represents the people in our community that would generally gravitate towards our hospital to use our services. The number 120 and 65, no, it's not a blood pressure reading. It actually represents the number of employees, which is 120. And that's a combination of full-time, part-time, and casual staff. And 65 actually represents the number of physicians that have privileges at our hospital. Now you might tell to yourself, 65 is quite a high number for a hospital of our size. That actually represents a lot of radiologists who are on this massive call group and work out of London, and they read their x-ray. Our x-ray images and ultrasounds are actually read out of London, but there's a huge cadre of radiologists that would do that. And that bumps up the number a little bit. I want to share with you a little bit, because we've learned over the course of our previous presentations that it's oftentimes not clear where the foundation fits in our big picture. If you look on the slide deck here, the MHA board is our Middlesex Hospital Alliance, actually represents and supports the 4 Counties Health Services Hospital, as well as our sister hospital, Strathroy Middlesex General Hospital, under which we each have a separate foundation and an auxiliary group of volunteers. So oftentimes get the question saying, well, if I'm donating to 4 Counties Hospital, how do I make sure that it's not going to go to support a Strathroy Hospital, or perhaps even the other way around? But I can assure you, and again with Martha's support and our foundation board, is that these foundations each support their respective hospitals, and the equipment stays at those various hospitals. Who we serve, again, we talked a little bit about the 22,000 patients in our community that could use our services. You see from the geography here that the H represents where 4 Counties Hospital is located. All of the areas generally marked in dark gray, lighter gray, is generally where the patients would come from to support both 4 Counties and Strathroy Hospital. So you can see from a catchment perspective that we do generally support all the 4 County residents, both Elgin, Middlesex, Kent, and Lambton. A couple of hospital statistics, again, just being mindful of time. Our emergency visits for the last fiscal year, which is up to and including March 31st, 2019, is about 10,000 visits a year. So if you were to have patients come in at the same time, it would be 1 an hour, every hour, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Patients don't come that way, but if you were to equate that in your mind, it would be 1 an hour that comes in. Same goes for the number of inpatients we have on our floor. We have 373 inpatients, so it's roughly 1 admission and 1 discharge a day for our 12 inpatient beds, which, if you were to equate that to a hotel, has an 88% occupancy rate, which is pretty high and pretty consistent amongst hospitals across the area. I won't share with you the other statistics. I think you do have it in your package as well. But again, it just shows the vibrancy of our hospital, as well as the ongoing concern of our hospital in terms of the numbers are not declining. They continue to either remain stable or increase depending on the service we're looking at. A bit of fun trivia, just to change things up a little bit. Can someone shoot a guess as to how many parking spots we have at 4 counties?
171.
Oh, you have your...
I was going to say, it doesn't really work. That's the people we are.
We have 3,400 patient meals a month, apparently, and 560 mop heads per week. Now that surprised me, but then I found out that you can actually, you have to use the mop heads every time you change patient rooms for infection control. reasons, right? But then the mop heads, thankfully, are, we can rewash and reuse them. They are disinfected and all of that stuff. So, but 560 mop heads a week, that was an impressive number from my perspective. And how much does it cost to run 4 counties each and every day? Well, again, that's a number we like to play around with for those who usually don't have the answers in front of them. But $33,300 per day to run our hospital. That's about a $12-ish million budget, give or take. This stat we oftentimes use as well to demonstrate the breadth and where our patients come from. So when you look at the 373 inpatients that joined our hospital last year, the vast majority came from Middlesex County, which you can see in the area on the right. So 51% came from the Middlesex County area. Change gears a little bit and look at the emergency visits. Middlesex County accounted for 30%, that's the top right figure, of all the emerge visits that came. You might wonder, well, why the smaller proportion of the pie? It's a little bit underway because of the Chatham-Kent County residents, which through word of mouth or through other reasons, other hospitals may have longer wait times in the Chatham-Kent County area. So those people in Thamesville, Botsford, etc., choose to come to us instead. So we're able to serve them, and that accounts for the higher weight of that county. Again, briefly switching gears to the Health Village update. A couple of years ago, we had a consultant come in and provide us with some advice as to where should we be putting our areas of focus in terms of looking at new village services, focusing on primary care, mental health, wellness, and seniors care. What programs can we do to develop and kind of round out the traditional clinical services that are done on site? So we're pleased to announce that from a primary care perspective, we have a brand new physician that's joined us, Dr. Monica Faria. She is doing some emergency shifts with us, and she's also doing what's called MRP, which is Most Responsible Physician, which means supporting the patients and doing morning rounds with those 12 inpatients in our inpatient unit. She happens to also have a family practice down the road in Glencoe at the Family Health Team. So it's a win-win. So the Family Health Team has a brand new family practice. We have the benefits of having a physician that wants to practice the traditional rural physician model and do some emerge and inpatient support, which is fantastic. We also have just recently signed a letter of agreement with the National Ballet School. So you're probably thinking to yourself, what the heck does a ballet school have to do with a hospital? We are undertaking and joining their sharing dance program. So it's a really innovative program where they either live stream or record, and then you can watch the streams once a week about how to do some dancing for our seniors population. So the seniors that might be in an adult day program, they can do the dancing while they're seated. Those that there's different levels of dance, they can do a level 2 where they actually have access to a chair and they can do some exercises. So again, it's a really interactive opportunity to create more vibrancy and active living for those seniors. And we're looking forward to trying out that program in about 3 weeks. We also focused on wellness. Last about almost a year ago now, in November, we had Dr. Jody Anderson from the Wellness Clinic, Southwest Pain Relief, asked us to join our organization and offer chiropractic services as well as pain management through laser light therapy, and also looking to expand into massage therapy, acupuncture, and other services. So we're really happy to have him as one of our primary tenants at the site. And we're also working with St. Elizabeth Healthcare here on the development of a flex clinic. So the clinic's available for those patients who traditionally may have gone to our emerge department to get a wound care changed. You can call the 1-800 number and get it booked. And you go into a certain time and date, go for your appointment, and they'll do the wound care outside of emerge. It's a better use of healthcare dollars. Instead of going through emerge and costing, I'm going to make up a number here, just at approximately $150 per visit, you can go to the flex clinic. It's still covered by the healthcare service, but it's a much cheaper cost to deliver that same service. So again, working with St. Elizabeth on promoting that service to the general population. So that's a brief update in terms of our health village. I could talk for hours and hours on what wonderful things we've been doing, but I wanted to again thank you for all your support, and certainly if there's time willing, Mr. Mayor, we open it up for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Steph. Is there any questions at all from council? No. I just had one, if I could. With the emergency services that you have there, do you find that there's any, I'm assuming in comparison to the Strathroy or Victoria Hospital or UH, is there any offload delays that you see happening in poor counties at all?
Generally, I would say no. I mean, we do get what's called, some surges. If you get a motor vehicle accident on the 401, we do get some surge. But what we do have is, for example, we have a physician that's usually staffed there overnight. A second physician can be called in if needed, and we do have that support and that availability. We are also less than fortunate to have the helipad. Oftentimes, if we have 2 trauma patients that are occurring at the same time, we have the benefit of land ambulance that can bring one patient over, depending on acuity, and the more severe patient can be airlifted over to the London Health Sciences or other sites. So we've been quite fortunate in terms of managing supply and demand, for lack of a better term, and very seldom do we have lineup of ambulances in the emergent outdoor area. I've never seen that, to be honest with you. So
That's what I figured, but I just wanted to double check. So,
Yep.
Excellent.
Yep.
Okay, so there's no more questions. Thank you very much for the presentation. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll leave these out on your calendar for you.
Excellent.
For anybody that wants to pick them up. There's a spring field, and we'll get some of the fall fields over later on. So, thanks everyone, and
Okay.
be
Take
here.
your call.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Alright, so our next presentation is regarding the Adelaide, Ontario. We have a presentation and a request for membership from Gavin Houston.
Good evening, everybody. Mayor Smith and councillors, and I appreciate you taking the time to let me speak to something that's probably not something you really hear a lot about in this part of the township. I'm going to sit down after seeing that colonoscopy picture. Past that 50 mark, so still shivering. Aggregate is a big deal in much of Middlesex County. And you guys are a little bit outliers. You don't have an awful lot of activity out here, but based on the information I have, you've got 6 active licenses within your township. And what we're trying to do is implement change within the industry. And we're working a lot in Oxford County and Zora Township, and Thames Center is a big one. It's one of the top 10 agri-producing townships. I mean, it's just a township. It's up there with some of the bigger counties. And in areas like that, and certainly other pockets in and around London and within Middlesex County, there are areas where it's a big issue, and it's a big issue for councils, that every time a new pit is opening up or an expansion, that the people are up in arms, and they come in and they demand action from their local government. And unfortunately, because of the nature of the industry, local government's hands are relatively tied. So what can be done to try and make things a little bit better within the smaller regions without having to deal with the province itself? And what we're doing is actually, what we've discovered after the last 3 years of working around Oxford County, we realized there's a big disconnect between the local government and the aggregate producers. The people out here are smaller producers. They have no representation. In Toronto, there's a large organization that claims to represent 80% of the industry and is supposed to keep producers in check and updated as to how things are changing out in the real world with sustainability programs, protecting source water, going back to a certain percentage of natural heritage to make sure that we can all our kids have somewhere nice to live in the future. But it doesn't reach very far. In essence, out of the 6,800 pit owners in the province, that organization only represents 80. And they're usually the larger producers, and they all have members on the board. Once you get outside of that area, there's very little representation, and the producers are acting on their own. Even in Thames Center, where there's an awful lot of aggregate activity, the councillors really don't know the people that are out there doing the job, who are creating these pits and excavating the aggregate. I'm not anti-aggregate. It's an important resource. You guys have reserves within your township, and then sometime in the near future, somebody's going to open up another pit. What we're trying to say is we need to get these smaller producers or the landowners in and educate them about the programs that the counties and the townships are implementing towards a more sustainable future. And through that education, start to work together instead of all this fighting. You don't have a lot of fighting here, but if you go down to Thames Center, it's huge. It's a big deal. There's all sorts of things that can happen to make aggregate better, even within your area. And so we've started with putting together a summit. It was actually Marcus Ryan, the mayor of Zora Township, who's another top 10 producer, came up with the name. And we're putting together all the local governments, as many within Middlesex, Oxford, and Norfolk, just trying to get all the local government representatives from local government together with a large amount of the smaller producers to start opening up a dialogue and teaching people about what you can do. I sent you some information, and sometimes the simplest things can make the biggest difference. Highway seed is this government standard. It's inexpensive and it's lousy. It does very little for the wildlife and for sustainability. Just by changing the seed and going to a native seed, you now have these beautiful flowered berms covered in butterflies and moths and birds, hummingbirds and that sort of thing. I mean, that's what we want. So what we're suggesting is that, or what we're trying to do is get support and get a larger voice. So I've met with many, and I'm meeting with every township within the 3 counties, and asking them to, at no charge, I'm paying for all of this. We're doing this summit, and we're asking you to send a representative or two to our summit in Zora in November 5th. It's an all-day event, and it's all about pulling everybody together and educating and opening up a dialogue. And what some of the things you'll be learning don't necessarily have to relate to gravel pits, but how about your sewage lagoons or some of your storage areas? Like, what have you done around there that might help contribute to sustainability? By coming to the summit, you may open up your eyes a little bit, even regarding to your own pits that are out here, and as well as some of the lands that you currently are responsible for. So there's no charge to have up to 2 people come to this summit. It's a catered event. It will be great, upbeat, highly motivational, and there's no charge. If you want to send over 2 people, then we're asking for $20 per person to cover the food costs. On top of that, and again, for you guys, it would mainly be support for Middlesex County and the aggregate, where aggregate is more concentrated in the small other townships. We're asking as many government organizations as possible to become a member of the Aggregate Ontario, or the Aggregate Ontario Alliance. It's $300, and it's basically just to expand the voice so that when a new producer is opening up a pit in your area or nearby, there is a mechanism to be able to say, okay, we've got this guy opening up, what can we do? And let's go speak to whether it's the producer or the actual owner of the land who could just be leasing it out to the producer and say, okay, what's this pit going to look like when it's finished? Could it be something else? As you come through, I just came from Stratford, and as you drive just through the township to the east, as you're passing town, there's an old gravel pit on the right. It looks actually quite nice, but wouldn't it be nicer if it was an open public space for people to utilize? And if it was seeded instead of just what it is, but if it was seeded with something that was native, indigenous to this area, so it actually contributed to sustainability. And since it is basically an open pit into the groundwater in the local wells, shouldn't it be full of aquatic plants so that it forms a type of barrier, so whatever's falling into that water with the rain. We don't drink rainwater for a reason. It's contaminated. And it's falling into all these pits all over the place, and it's a direct access, it's a conduit into the groundwater. By putting in aquatic plants, it forms a barrier. We're all aware of how wonderful wetlands are for cleaning our water. It's a natural filter. All these pits should be full of these types of plants. And I've been going out for the last 3 years, and I've been talking to all these pit owners, and whether it's a municipally owned pit or private. And once you open up the dialogue, it's amazing the difference. Their eyes are opened up. They don't realize what source protection is and why it's important, or how they're even linked to it. So by opening up this dialogue and saying, this is what's going on, and this is what you can do to alleviate that. And if you do that, then these people down the street aren't going to be so mad at you And next time if you want to open up a pit, you'll be able to say, well, this is how I behave. And therefore, the public will be less full of animosity. And that leads me to the other fact that, yes, local government's hands are tied when it comes to the opening up of gravel pits. But you do have a voice in the sense that all municipal governments use a tremendous amount of gravel. They're the largest purchaser of gravel within, whether it's provincial government or local government, they're the largest purchaser of aggregate. Now, wouldn't it make more sense that if you are going to be purchasing your aggregate, you're purchasing it from a person or a producer who's working with the municipality and doing things to benefit by protecting source water and using native seed and planting trees to get more reforesting in the areas? Isn't that where you should be buying your gravel? It doesn't have to be all about price point. The more that is done, the more the producers will start to toe the line and start to do a better job. So I could go on about I'm like the fellow with this colonoscopy. I could go on for hours about this. But even just the simplest thing, somebody mentioned a fish fry. What kind of fish did you have? Perch, yellow perch. If you took the surface area of water in Oxford County that's been created by aggregate extraction and used it to raise yellow perch using standard, already existing aquaculture practices in Oxford County alone, it would be the amount of perch raised per year would be 1/8 of all of Lake Erie. You start to think about those sorts of things, and you realize just what the potential is by utilizing gravel pits in a proper way. Get on Google Earth and have a scan and see just how much acreage has been opened up. It is thousands and thousands and thousands of acres of exposed water directly into the water table that is basically being used for no real purpose. We've developed a floating greenhouse that is completely off-grid, works off of wind and solar energy, and it raises yellow perch and heritage lettuces or any other type of hydroponic type plant, built on a floating platform. You can float out into a greenhouse, or float out into a gravel pit. You could line up 6 of them in that pit that I passed just 5 minutes or 10 minutes from your township. That's what we should be looking at. If somebody's going to open up a pit, sure, but when it's finished, it can't just be a barbed wire piece of property with barbed wire and no trespassing signs. It has to contribute to sustainability. Let's build a greenhouse. It'll pay for itself in 3 years. There's no hydro involved. Let's build a park. We're working on one with Rick Hansen right now, taking a bunch of the pits just near between Zora and Middlesex Center, or Kent Center, and looking to convert. It's almost 300 acres. Once we combine these pits together, turn it into a park for people with mobility issues, so they can go canoeing and fishing and kayaking and that sort of thing, completely on their own. There's over 10 kilometers of trails, unobstructed trails for people in wheelchairs, so they can get around. And it's right on the edge of the Thames River. It'll be beautiful. These are the things that can happen, and we're asking you, even though you're a bit of an outlier, to participate in that, and ideally become a member of our organization, to lend a voice, but also to consider having somebody at the summit in November to learn a little bit more about what else is going on in and around your area. And that's it.
Okay. Thank you so much for all the information. Is there any questions at all from council?
How long has your organization been around?
3 years.
3 years.
I started out with Oxford County in their Future Oxford program. The Future Oxford Community Sustainability Program is what it sort of morphed into. Oxford County is on par with California as far as renewable energy, zero waste, and locally grown food for everybody, healthy food, and it's a great program. But to be able to accomplish that, you have to think outside the box. And because of my experience, I went to the CEO and said, why don't we start looking at gravel pits? Because you want to start raising food and locally grown food, here's a great way of doing it. And that's what started it all. And then as I met the producers, I've met hundreds of them, I started to realize where the disconnect was and the lack of information. And it's a simple process. And that's why I wanted to throw my own money into it. Oxford asked for citizens to stand up, and I did that. But it's not just an Oxford issue. it expands much wider. And I'm working with the new mayor and council at Thames Center. They have a big problem there, and that's why we're coming to use support throughout as part of Middlesex County.
Okay, thank you.
That's been it.
Interesting presentation, Gavin, thank you. Have you made your presentation to any of the conservation authorities?
I have been dealing with Upper Thames Conservation Authority. We've got a couple of things going as far as, again, there's 3 park projects that we're currently working on. All of them involve Upper Thames. It all falls within the Upper Thames mandate, which is creating public spaces and getting people outdoors and all that kind of stuff. Kind of a shift going on provincially. They're scrambling right now. But I do work with them. I'm meeting Wilcox and the gang over there are sort of a little familiar with me. Times probably not the world's greatest way because I'm always pushing for change, but there's no money.
Okay, is there any other questions at all? Just one question if I could. So your membership is $300, and how many members do you have right now, and is there any municipalities from Middlesex County?
I will be going with, you're the first one in Middlesex County. We've just started doing a push on this. I am personally going to all the local governments, and this is my 4th meeting, but all the other 3 have also.
Okay. And the $300, what is that? You're mentioning that the summit, you said that you're personally paying for it, is what I'm understanding.
Yeah.
So what's the membership going towards?
It's to operate the website. I hired a person to full-time go around and try to get all the producers to join, and it's just to help cover some of the costs. There's a website that you'll have full access to. There'll be monthly articles that'll be published and sent out to all members that are directly related to sustainability and some of the projects that are going on, and highlighting we're building one of these greenhouses this fall, and it'll be all about that and some of the things that are going on, just to keep the interest up there and make people more aware of what's going on. So it's just to help cover that cost.
Okay. Is there any other questions at all? Seeing none? Okay. Thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you. I'm going to just take a bunch of my cards and pass them around.
Excellent. Okay.
Feel free to call or if anybody has any questions. Thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to correspondence. So the first section is the upcoming conferences, seminars, and meetings. Our next regular meeting is scheduled for Monday, September 16th, and then a tentative meeting is scheduled for Monday, September 30th, and then followed by October 7th. And then we have our public meeting for Tuesday, September 24th, 2019 at 6:30 p.m. regarding the Community Hub in Kerwood Park.
Where's our meeting downstairs?
So downstairs.
I think I read that.
The first item for correspondence is from the Strathroy District Chamber of Commerce, and it's their news, the 21st Annual Business Excellence Awards nominations form for 2019, as well as their golf tournament registration and sponsorship request. Item number 2 is from Strathroy Caradoc, and it's a zoning bylaw amendment, 1329, and it's the public notice. So we won't have any concerns with that. Okay, recommended readings. Item number 3 is from the Ontario Good Roads Association, and it's the June 2019 highlights. Item 4 is from CUPW, the Future Canada Post. Item number 5 is from SWIFT, the 2019 Summer Edition. Item 6 is the Ontario Cannabis Legislation Implementation Fund. Item number 7 is from Blue Water Recycling. It's Ontario announces next steps to improve recycling and tackle plastic waste. Item 8 is from Frank Cowan, and it's the client communication. Any concerns with that update? Okay. Item number 9 is from Enbridge Gas Inc., and it's an OEB notice of application. item number 10 is from Pam and Doug McLean, and it's a letter against biosolids. And the next section is action required, and it's from the town of Bradbury West.
Willenbury.
Yeah. Resolution, and it's never forgotten national memorial. Any thoughts on what we'd like to do? Seeing nobody's jumping up and down on this one, we'll have a motion to resolve the council receive and file correspondence CC1 to CC11. Councillor Clark and Councillor Brody. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. And also, I skipped over this motion I didn't realize, and it's a motion to resolve that Council receive and file a request from Agriculture Ontario for the township to become a member with Agriculture Ontario Alliance and consider in the 2020 budget. Or if you wish to do something else. Would you like to move that?
Yes,
Okay, moved by Councillor McKinnon, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hendricks. Any discussion on this?
The year's almost over, so I think that's a fair.
And I'd like to just set some more information exactly about what it means to become a member and if there's any associated costs above the membership, if it was to hold or do we have a voice at the table or what it actually means to be a member. Yeah. Okay.
I would be interested though in going on November 5th. I took a second part because I have, somebody who should belong.
I think it'd be worthwhile for someone to attend and to bring that information back. But that would be, I think we should almost have a list of items and that could be potentially on it based on if you go what your report is. So because if we get requests in during the year, that's not our budget. So to bring those, so we have them at the forefront, or if we start working on our budget in November, that's on our radar.
Excellent. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Okay, moving into staff reports. Our first report is from our clerk, Jennifer.
Thanks, Mayor Smith. This is just my monthly report to council. I updated it today because our bylaw enforcement officer made a re-inspection on a property. So as you can see, 2 of the 3 are closed. There's one still open. There was a issue that came to the forefront after a re-inspection from the original complaint was complied with, but there was another issue and the staff was there to view, so it's still open. He still has 2 more weeks to comply with that issue.
Okay. Is there any questions at all? Okay, mover and seconder to resolve that council received the bylaw enforcement report for the period ending September 3rd, 2019 as presented by the clerk.
So moved.
Councillor Clark and Councillor McKinnon. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Our next report is from our CAO treasurer, Kathy.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. The first report is the invoice payment approval listing for the period August 9th, 2019 to August 30th, 2019 in the amount of $738,901.17.
Okay, is there any questions on the accounts? Deputy Hendricks?
Yes, Carrero Fabrication, the mower shoe buildup. Didn't we just get that more?
Yes, I do believe it was just some maintenance work that's been on it. We do the shoes quite often, so I think they were extending part of they were extending something to make it a better working piece of equipment.
That would be a wear item on the bottom.
Okay, and the other one I had was hornblower horizontal. I'm just wondering what that work was, because I live there and I didn't see it.
That's the bore across the road for the Botham drain, the directional bore. That's one of the next progress payment.
Oh, okay, okay. I was thinking it was closer to the corner, but yeah, that makes sense. Okay, that's all I had.
Any other questions at all? No. Moving on second to resolve the council approve the account listings for the period August 9th, 2019 to August 30th, 2019 in the amount of $738,901.17 as presented. Okay, Councillor Brody and Councillor McKinnon. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried.
next item is in regards to the township credit cards. There's a report on developing a policy in regards to using and issuing township credit cards. Our policy is attached for council's review. There is no impact on the budget for the creation of the policy. And the recommendations are both that the council receive the policy report as presented, and then that council accept the draft policy for review to be discussed at the next regular council meeting for approval, or if there are no concerns, we can approve it tonight, and credit cards can be issued. They're here, ready to be distributed.
Okay, discussion? Everyone Hendricks?
Yeah, the only question I had on the policy was under policy violations, we've got a range depending on the severity of the violation, and I thought that I understand why you don't want to put exact numbers in, but that seems a little too subjective, I guess. I'd like to see a little more meat around what severe is and what's not severe.
I don't have a problem with the way it's drafted, because there could be where someone has their card in their wallet, and if it's Aaron, for example, and he goes to the gas station and he's buying a package of cigarettes, I don't know if you smoke, then he grabs the wrong credit card and it's $11 charge, and then he realizes I had the wrong card. It could be an honest mistake. If an employee, and I have seen this in another area, where they went and bought some appliances,
And paid it back, yeah.
No, they didn't pay it back, no, it was no mistake either, yeah. So the thing is, I think I think it's fine the way it's written, because it could be an error, or it could be blatant, and I've seen blatant and I've seen an error, so I'm okay with it.
And if I may, everything should be approved within your budget, and if it's not something that's in your budget, then you need approval from someone before you can use your card. So there is kind of some protections there, and it was purposely left over because there are times where we do make a mistake, and you might grab your personal card and then you should use your township card, but does happen from time to time, so.
And then
There is a requirement to submit your receipts, and a violation would be if you don't submit them, we would send you a letter to say you've not submitted your receipts, we'll suspend your card, and then go from there.
So, and also, if they don't have their receipt within 14 days, is the onus on them personally to pay that?
Yes,
Okay, and
We
that
go back to
be
them,
covered from their pay?
yes,
Okay.
if they can't prove it was a legitimate township
Okay.
purchase, yes.
The only question I had with that was with the 14 days is that when reading this, I was kind of thinking that it should be within receipt of the actual invoice or whatever you call it, the actual credit card bill, because you may not know that there was charges on it.
All of the invoices come here. They're generated to one person, so we get all of the statements here.
Okay.
The only person, no one else would receive those statements, so.
But what if
they
there
were
are
all
2 weeks holidays or something, is that what you're saying?
No, what I was saying was, so then you're getting the statement monthly, and you're asking that you receive the receipt within 14 days of a purchase. So I guess if it's all in one section, then that's fine. I was just thinking about in other organizations I'm part of, it's just you get all the receipts at the end of the month kind of thing. Yeah.
And that's just to make sure they don't get lost or misplaced in between, because it does happen, and they just come in and we can code them and get them in the system, so we know. And again, because some of them don't have a very high limit, so if there's something that they really need, then we can get a payment made and approved, so.
Then you know what's going
Or if they're on a conference or something, then they have to get it in within a certain time, so.
Okay, so
Admin people climbing through pickup trucks going into glove compartment.
okay, so the first motion in front of us is to resolve the council receive the township credit card policy report as presented by the CO treasurer. Okay, Councilor McKinnon and Councilor Clark, all those in favor, opposed, and that's carried. And would you like to have the motion that we have this at the next meeting or have it for approval right now? Councilor Brody?
Move for approval right now.
Okay, do you have a seconder? Councilor Clark, any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried.
The next report is in regard to the low zone program for the Adelaide Metcalfe Fire Department. Council received a report at the April 15th, 2019 regular meeting from the fire chief regarding a program for the township of Adelaide Metcalfe for the fire department. The operational guideline for the low zone administration was established by the fire department, and a draft policy is attached for council's review, and this is just how we're going to monitor it and administer the program from an administration standpoint. Also enclosed was a copy of the fire department's operational guideline and the community partner memorandum of understanding for the low zone distribution. There is no impact on the budget for the establishment of the program, as the low zone kits are currently being provided at no charge to the fire services by the Middlesex London Health Unit, and that will be done following submission of the signed agreement and copy of our procedures.
Councillor Clark?
This question is to Aaron. Sorry, I'm a little bit ignorant on this naloxone. But when I was reading the policy and the guidelines, it mentions it's a nasal. I always thought it was an injectable thing. Is that more, it's been upgraded, or is it because it's too difficult for you to handle the glass and the syringe and all that, or what was the logic there?
So first it was just naloxone, which was a needle, and which we can't do. We don't do needles. So over the last number of years, they came up with the nasal spray, and it is very effective as well. Now you may have to administer it more than once. It's not quite as strong. So say someone is down because they're overdosed, so you give them a nasal spray, and they'll come to, but then they might go down again. Just give them another one.
So
That's the only difference.
is this like a one-time use thing? So
Yes.
each truck has 2 on it? Did I read that?
Yes.
Okay. I just wondered why they wouldn't do like the
Yeah, the
glue to
EpiPen.
the thigh, red to the
That's
skull,
what
or
I
whatever
read.
that thing is. That's none of that, eh? Okay.
No, it's
Okay.
like a needle in a, in a vial.
Oh, God, okay,
Yeah.
so that's why. Okay, that makes
Yeah.
perfect sense then.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And most first responders use Narcan. Police.
Is
yeah,
that the
that's-
nasal? Is Narcan the nasal or Narcan?
Narcan is nasal,
Oh, okay,
and that's what we'll be getting.
okay. So when, you don't have that yet? No?
No.
Or do we have to pass this first for you to get it?
Yes,
Okay.
pass it.
Okay. You want a motion?
Okay,
Go
so
ahead.
first we'll have.
That was one question.
Yeah.
Why did this take so long?
It's just getting the information organized. The fire department got their guidelines in place, and then we had to have guidelines from the township standpoint to ensure that we were in compliance with the MOU, as well as the information that came from the risk management at the Grant County Company Insurance. Wanted to make sure that there was nothing that we were overseeing in our policies.
I guess it just took a little too long, I think.
I think at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we have all of this covered just in case something was to happen, especially if I was a volunteer firefighter and we didn't have all our ducks in a row and the policy wasn't in place and we weren't talking with the insurance company, I would be a little weary about using it.
I think every volunteer firefighter wanted it a long time ago. A long time ago.
Alright, so we have 3 recommendations. The first one is to receive the report.
So moved.
Councillor Kennedy, and seconded by Councillor Brody. All those in favor? Opposed, and that's carried. The next is to approve the policy. Councillor Brody and Deputy Hendricks. All those in favor? Opposed, and that's carried. And next is to resolve that council authorize the CEO treasurer to sign the community partnership memorandum of understanding for naloxone distribution for the township.
So moved.
Councillor Clark and Councillor Brody. All those in favor? Opposed, and that's carried.
Item number 4 is the special policy areas land use planning study public consultation. As council will remember, we passed the interim control bylaw on May 21st, 2019 to temporarily prohibit uses other than those existing and occurring on those lands identified as special policy areas within the official plan. The ICB will expire on May 21st, 2020, 1 year following the date of passing. Planning staff estimated that the special policy area review will take between 6 to 8 months to complete, leaving time for any changes as necessary prior to the expiration of the ICB. At the July 22nd meeting of Council, Planner Aaron Besch presented a non-core services proposal for the special policy area land use planning study. Part of the process includes public consultation to present the findings of the SPA review and policy analysis. The feedback gathered from the public consultation will be summarized for draft recommendations for Council's consideration. The proposal included a project timeline for the study. The background study work is underway. The public consultation was indicated to take place in mid to late October 2019. In 2018, when working through the ICB for the municipal service area of the township, the Center Road Corridor, once a date was selected, an open house was held from 3 to 6 p.m. with a public meeting convened at 6 p.m., all in council chambers. Planners were in attendance during both the open house and public meeting. The open house was an opportunity for the public to speak directly with the planners in attendance and have questions answered or concerns brought forward. The public meeting was a forum where members of council heard directly the concerns of the public specifically related to the SPA. This format worked very well and is being recommended for the SPA study. Early notice of the consultation is key to its success. The township will utilize traditional advertising in local papers, circulate notices as per the Planning Act, and post on the township website and Facebook. There is a cost for the advertising is proposed for the open house and public meeting in the newspapers, as well as providing dinner for the planners in attendance. The recommendation is that you accept the report as presented and that you select a date for public consultation, open house, and public meeting between October 15th and October 30th to maintain the project timeline as set out in the proposal.
Okay, so let's first have the mover and seconder for the report. Councilor Penn and Deputy Mayor Hendricks. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. And what are we thinking for dates?
I'm hoping for the 15th, sooner than later.
Or 21st if you want to stick to Monday.
Well, I was wondering as well, because of the accessibility problems that we have with a gravelled parking lot, it's difficult for people with wheelchair and like walkers to get in downstairs. And I was wondering if we could utilize the fire hall for that meeting and open house.
I mean, that would be more convenient for staff. We tend to assist the planners because we know some of the people that are coming in and the concerns, so that's the only thing is it is a little bit prohibits from Jennifer and myself from participating in the open house and helping with whatever they need.
What are the hours that we're looking at for?
3 to 6 was the open house, and at 6 was the public meeting.
Oh, sorry. I will do that somewhere. My concern with the 15th is that that's the day after Thanksgiving, so I think that the Thanksgiving Monday, so I don't know if that's an ideal time.
So what about the 30th? Or you wanna get in between that?
Your recommendation is between
The
the
15th.
15th and the 30th, yeah. Any other thoughts?
I just thought Monday for township stuff is pretty.
Crops will all be late, so that's maybe not an issue.
The only, so I would, if you're wanting a Monday, that'd be the 28th, because we have a meeting on the 21st.
Oh,
So,
okay. Yeah, that is getting later. Second.
I have county council that day, so
Conservation Fair Board is,
there's a Western Fair Board meeting, AGM being held on the 23rd, so that doesn't work.
yeah, 23rd.
And then the 24th is the Stratford Chamber of Commerce Awards night, so that won't work.
So there's stuff going on.
What about the 17th? A Wednesday?
That's a Thursday.
Thursday.
That would work.
As long as the planner is
Available. Mm-hmm.
Do you wanna pick 2 dates then?
I've already confirmed that Erin will have any one of those days
Oh,
available.
okay,
Yes.
okay.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I confirmed with her that she is not on vacation between the 15th and the 30th.
Okay,
And some of those days were recommended. so.
okay, okay,
17th?
Thursday.
sure. So that's from 3 to 6 and 6 p.m.
In the municipal office.
I guess the front's wheelchair accessible, is it not, from the parking lot here?
Yes, it'll be probably downstairs, so.
Downstairs. And that's the problem, like Mr. McLean had difficulties coming in, you know, and George Early, he wanted to come, you know, and he'll, be in a wheelchair, so.
And how will that be, how will the room be set up? We have the open house during those hours, and then I'm assuming we'll have the seats as well set up already.
I don't
Yeah.
envision that as being the best use of that space, like that's gonna be difficult to have chairs and then have people walking through unless you set up the chairs this way and because you know how many people you had last time, so you're likely gonna have at least that amount of people. The Betty Ann's one, they may not even be big enough down there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're gonna end up having people this way and this way, where's your display? And the chairs will all be in the way.
I would think she would have the display up here for the open house, but maybe not.
Oh, that's a possibility.
Yeah. And then just vacate here and go downstairs for the public meeting, but I don't know.
I think that would be the best.
What's your capacity downstairs?
I believe it's 86.
There's a reason.
I think it's 86.
So it's 80 something.
I think we met capacity plus last time.
Yeah, but if they were set up here, then it's not disruptive down there, and it's accessible from the front.
Well, I think that the actual public meeting part won't be as busy if you have that 3-hour window for people to come and talk to Aaron directly and whoever else is here.
Mhm.
That some of those individuals won't stay
They'll
for
be
the public.
satisfied.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Do the motion wanting to resolve it, the public consultation, open house and public meeting be held October 17th, I think we said.
17,
Yeah.
In regards to special policy areas, land use planning study.
so moved.
Okay, Councillor Clark and Councillor Brody. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried.
The next report was in regards to Walker's Drive and Case Road intersection report. It was actually prepared by Jeff Little before he left employment with the township. The township had received a written inquiry about safety concerns in the hamlet of Walker's, particularly involving the intersection of Walker's Drive and Tate's Road. Similar verbal concerns have been made to staff from residents of the area. The following list of concerns noted were vehicles not stopping and running through the stop signs, vehicles traveling fast leading up to the stop signs, pedestrians walking along the road, someone with disabilities, children walking along the road. And the following list of requests that were accompanied with the concerns were larger stop signs, children playing warning signs, speed bumps in all 4 corners of the intersection, and the installation of a street light. The new larger stop signs were planned to be installed at the intersection upon completion of the road resurfacing. Stop ahead signs are planned for the intersection on Walker's Drive to give further warning of a stop coming up. The plan is also to install pedestrians ahead sign on Walker's Drive, and this again to warn drivers that there are pedestrians using this section of the road on a regular basis. Children playing warning signs are actually intended for around playgrounds. This would not be an appropriate area for this type of sign. The above measures should be installed and then evaluated. If dangerous driving is observed, then a police presence would be the next step. A request by residents to the OPP, particularly at a certain time of day, can have a positive effect on traffic. The township can provide support for the OPP presence. A streetlight does not have positive safety features, but the installation of one must take into account the number of pedestrians using the street at night in relation to the number of vehicles. As well, the municipality must look at intersections across the township and develop a policy for installing them before proceeding. Speed bumps are a traffic calming measure. They are used generally in high urban traffic areas to force drivers to reduce the speed. The measures are installed when policing alone cannot control the flow of traffic. This is considered an extreme measure, and a traffic engineering study will need to be conducted to support the installation. Police involvement at this intersection needs to take place before considering a traffic study. All of the signage was accounted for in the 2019 budget and the construction portion of the budget. And the recommendation that you resolve that you accept the report from the Public Works Manager and presented by the CEO.
Question? Moving.
Question.
Yes.
Question. I agree with the recommendation for the larger stop signs. And I also think there's a problem with the sight lines there at the four corners. And I agree with not everybody stops as they're going down Walkers, but putting rumble strips there will just annoy everybody there and keep them awake. They're very, very noisy, and I don't agree with them at all. I don't have a problem with the children playing warning signs. I see them quite often in other municipalities. And I just wondered why there's a orange traffic cone in the middle of the intersection now. Was that placed by the road department or one of the residents of the Walkers? It's right in the middle of the intersection.
I'm assuming it was a resident from the area that did that, because I don't think we would leave a cone in the middle of the road.
I'm thinking as well, and but anyways, I agree with everything but the rumble strips and the light, and I would hope that we would do something with the sight lines there.
Is it trees? It's a
Yeah,
trees.
it's
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Councilor Brody?
But big stop signs on the other way as well.
Yes, they're on all four corners.
All four.
Yeah, it's an all-way stop,
Yeah.
but not everybody stops.
Yeah. But put big stop signs on all four ways,
Yeah.
not just one.
Okay, any other comments at all? I think just something else I'd like to add with the stop signs in the hard surface roads. I also think when we're looking at, if we're going to be doing any policies with signage and roads and that type of thing, is that I think all of our hard surface roads needs to have a policy that there's a stop sign ahead sign, if that makes sense, policy, because when we have all these new hard surface roads traffic is faster, and I think we need to have that
That's a good suggestion.
that sign up there, and we have it in some places but not in all of them, and when we're adding these new hard surface roads, I think that's something that we're missing on that. And I'm thinking specifically, Walkers and Scotchmere and those ones, they're not on them yet, and I think some of the older ones, roads that we've paved we have, but I think we need to have that policy in place, that sign is in place. Different Hendricks?
I'm just thinking that on the paved roads up here, the stop signs are at county roads, so I don't know if you need to do it there. People do stop at county roads.
But they have the speed limit reducing, like for on Pike Side Road, that's a reducing speed limit. We don't have anything on these other roads, is there? Nothing at all, like stop sign ahead, reduce speed. Like did you reduce the speed going through these hamlets?
Well, the hamlets are a different thing though.
Is there a reduced speed over there?
No, there should be
No, there was something, that was something that Jeff was talking about after we evaluate. That would be something also. Unfortunately, reducing the speed doesn't make people stop because again, it comes down to enforcement. That's
Because
where
the
he
stop
says
line, you
getting
can enforce it. I mean,
the
it's not-
police presence there
Yeah.
is his, what he thought should happen next. If they're not going to stop, then
Yeah.
we can contact the OPP and get them up there to do our enforcement.
But to follow up on Kurt, like, if you're
Yes.
driving 100 kilometers, you're not gonna stand on the brakes and be able to stop in time anyway, so
Yeah.
your point's well made.
Yes.
Okay, so we just have the motion then to accept the report, because there's already a motion to have the larger stop signs. Councillor Kinnon and Councillor Brody. All those in favor? Opposed, and that's carried.
Could we have added that
Oh, sorry.
extra?
So, for
Could we
what?
have added that extra to like stop sign ahead?
We can.
It's already in there.
What is it?
Yes,
Stop sign is
stop
in
sign
there.
ahead signs are planned for the installation.
Oh, okay, I didn't know if that was just
No.
if it didn't work, okay.
No.
Okay.
So
Plans.
it's the larger signs and the stop sign ahead signs. I'm just saying for all the other locations, I'd also
Oh.
like to see that done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Sorry, I stepped out and I didn't forget there.
That's okay. Okay, on to the next one.
The next report is in regards to the request for proposal for the sidewalk engineering report. The tenders and the request for proposals were sent out July 30th and closed on August 22nd. The sidewalk sections were there for council to review in the original report. There is an amount of $200,000 including the 2019 budget for sidewalk engineering. Today, between last week with Jeff and today, we finished a report on a detailed review of all of the requests for proposals that were submitted. It was clear in the actual draft of the request for proposal that being the lowest was not necessarily the acceptance of the proposal, that other criteria included the qualification, expertise of the firm, the history with and knowledge of the Township of Adelaide Metcalfe, the completeness of the submitted proposal, the proposed layout and design detail, and the total fees also were part of the criteria that would be evaluated. There is a subsequent report which outlines a little bit more detail when we review the report, some of the comparisons between and among them. There was a difference of the lowest report was from GM Blue Pan of $37,800 to complete the report plus HST, with Spree Associates coming in at $132,100 plus HST. It is broken down whether they had engineering and also provided the lighting engineering, which is for your street lights and overhead lights. Public Works Manager Jeff Little provided the following comments on the proposals. The top three proposals are from Spree Associates, BM Ross and Associates, and Driven Engineering.
Excuse me.
The top proposal in regards to the details within the proposal is from BM Ross. The top proposal from a working standpoint is from Driven Engineering, and that was from his previous experience. And the top proposal for the working relationship is from Spree Associates. It was his opinion that there would be no issues in accepting any one of the above top three proposals. He did make a recommendation that we engage Spree Associates for the engineering services requested. He also recommended that at the initial meeting, so the clear path and direction be established at the initial meeting to ensure that the scope of the project is understood. They went a little further than just doing the preparatory work. They actually included amounts for the contract overseeing the tendering and overseeing of the contracts. So that's how it was broken down. So it's all of them are able, or most of them are able to comply with the timeline to have it completed, the engineering done, and returned to the township in January of 2020. The proposals range from a couple pages to 60-some pages, so that's why they were not reproduced for all of council, but it is summarized there for you. If you would like to review them, you're welcome to have a look at each proposal. So we're just looking to see what council feels would be the best way to go.
Thoughts? Councillor Kinnon?
Jeff has said that any of the top three, Spreet's, Ross, or Driven, he would have no problem with. And he says that the top proposal working with is from Driven Engineer, and he's at $54,800, and Spreet's at $132,100. And I'm thinking, when you look at references given, relationship with the township, no. The timeline meets, the proposal details are okay, the understanding of the scope is very good, and the proposal evaluation very good, and he has the engineering, design, and construction, those are all yes. And I'm wondering, why would Jeff go to Spree? It's at double, more than double.
So if I may, a lot of it has to do with lighting. Lighting is a big part of this and will be a very large expense for the sidewalk proponent. As you can see, they specified their actual engineering of the sidewalks is $64,900. The cost to engineer the lighting is $67,200. So you'll have a more fulsome report. Driven Engineering did not specify what they will do for the lighting.
So why didn't they?
It wasn't a requirement to do that. Spree felt,
Even
and
though
the
that would be a
Ross both
standard?
felt that it was better to establish off the get-go what the cost would be for that.
Yeah, cause
As
that would
opposed
be
to
a
coming
standard,
back.
right? You have to have that.
Yes.
But most of the area that sidewalk will be in will be lit, will it not? Napperton and Center and,
There's different requirements when you start to implement sidewalks and the classification of the road. And whether you're lighting the road or whether you're lighting the sidewalk, it's a different standard that has to be used.
So from my evaluation of this, it looks like BM Ross and Associates is like the strongest, but they've not put a proviso in for overseeing, extending the tender to construction, which we don't know what that is. So Street has actually made an allowance for that. I would say that would allow for the difference between the two, would you say?
Likely, I would suggest.
I
Probably something
respect
to do
Jeff
with it.
Little's opinion, and if he feels that that is the best tender, I would be happy to support that.
Deputy Hendricks?
I could agree with that. I mean, they're all well under budget as far as that goes. And my thoughts first went to Driven too, but if lighting is going to double their cost, then they're not that far ahead.
Well, they haven't told us, it could be a
No.
surprise number, right? It could be a lot more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Councillor Brody?
Just a comment here, so if you look at Key and Ross, their lighting component is $37,800. So, and their engineering is $78,000. So Driven's engineering is $54,000. If their lighting comes in lower, you're talking it could be $30,000. Well, then all of a sudden you're 50 to 85,000. That's $50,000 less than Spirit. Should we get a number from Driven for the lighting part before we just take a quote that could be
That's a good idea.
$50,000 more right off the hop?
Are we allowed to at this point?
Or not yet, or we not?
But they had the opportunity to provide that. They will provide a lighting design, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be, an engineered lighting design. It could be just, the street lights and,
So they basically haven't fulfilled the tender.
They technically they fulfilled it, they just didn't, it was the option to also to include the street lighting. is my
Correct.
It's
understanding.
not as comprehensive as,
yes.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
So that's something you don't think we can do then?
Kathy?
For me,
Or
go back
you
and
do?
ask them
Yeah.
for,
verification.
we could negotiate with them if they're the selected ones and find out what they have in their scope of work. And what they would expect to provide us at that point.
But if they weren't able to do the lighting, we would have to go out and get a request for proposal again. Which would be a pain.
And the way it's laid out is, they're to go so far with their report so that your council has a full understanding of what the costs are going to be for each section. So part of it is to have that lighting component so you know what you're going to, total expense would be per section, so.
And like Mike, I'd like to see, Driven, give
fifth time, and then we have to go back to these tender results.
No.
Pardon my ignorance, but how does a tender work? Like once you put it out there and it comes back, that closes it? Or can you go back to a BM Ross, for example, and ask what it would cost to extend the tender / construction?
On a request for proposal, you have some latitude to negotiate
Okay.
with what you selected. A tender that's the price and that's it. But a request for proposal, you have some latitude in negotiating some additional
This is an RFP
information.
or
So this is a request for proposal.
Okay, so
I
we do.
just, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so we do.
Yeah, so we do have some latitude to get additional answers.
Because the BM Ross, the thing I like about that is I understand the scope of the project, they were right very good, but then so was Driven as well, right?
Mhm.
So, and then both of them have the
Councilor Brody?
So because this is a proposal and we have some time, why don't we go back to Driven and just relook at this one more time?
I'd like to know also what BM Ross and Associates, what they would, to bring them up to the same streets then? Like to get them to take us to tender, like what they would charge for that
That'll be
piece?
extend.
Okay, yeah, to bring it, yeah, everyone brings us to the point where you make a decision on whether you want to proceed with the contract or not.
Yeah, because we're comparing apples to
Yeah,
oranges
and
here.
Driven as well.
So I didn't think we had a choice, so if we have a choice, I'm open to that. Otherwise, I'm supposed to be.
The choice wasn't easy.
And the other thing that I was wondering, I didn't take the time to go through and figure out the addresses as to where exactly the streets that we're looking for the sidewalks and which side and all that kind of stuff. Could we get a map of where the
Okay, yes, basically, it's the areas that we spoke of, it's along Second Street, whichever side of the street, they're to investigate both sides of the
Okay.
street to come back with the proposal on which sides work. Center, it's the same thing, on the
So it's
east
on both.
and the west side, to come back with the proposals on what there is on both sides.
And what is
And
that going
then-
from Panel, and how far north is that going to?
I believe just to the end of development,
So Second Street?
Second Street, so on the west side, there wasn't, I think we have the map at the,
There was a list.
yeah, I have the maps with me.
It would have been on the
Let's see.
RFP. And then Napperton, of course.
Okay, so on Center Road, so it goes from Center Road to the Second Street, Second Center, and the intersection at Second and Center to, on the east side, 530 meters. So that would be, on that side, so it goes to 28,636, so it must not go all the way through.
No, we'll go to Home Hardware.
So it looks like the Home Hardware, and then it looks like he's also got it quoted for all the way from Center, Second intersection to Center, Panel Lane intersection on the east side. So there's 1,320 meters from Center Road to Panel on the east side, and 530 meters otherwise on the east side. So that would be from Second to probably to likely Home Hardware, maybe McDonald's, and nothing past there. And then on Second Street to Second and Panel Lane intersection on the west side. So at 2357 Second to the Panel Lane intersection on the west side.
So
I know he had a map and had it marked out, so I will have to review that.
Yeah.
Yep, we can provide that.
And because the only other one that I would have liked to have seen was, so we have on Second Street goes from Strathclyde Rock Boundary to Rivergrass Court, and then from Rivergrass Court to Hickory Drive. But I would have liked to seen from Second Street on Hickory to Butcher Creek, whatever road that's called, Dolphin or Hoofnagle or whatever road that is.
Yeah, that wasn't included in our budget for the review. We only had these 3 sections included in the budget for review this year. So that's why the other section wasn't included.
It should have been.
And we talked about Second Street and Pike Road, Napperton, and Center Road.
Can we have it in?
redo it then, right?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, Councilor Brody?
We're not gonna be able to do all these in one sitting anyways, so, I mean, we're gonna have to prioritize probably because of dollars, so I wouldn't be worried about adding many more to the list, to be very honest. And if, especially if that's gonna change the proposal. I mean, cause we, you know, this is just an estimate on getting an engineer. We don't even know how much it's gonna cost yet, so, yeah, I don't think we need to get, until we see some of that, we might have a big enough list as it is.
And the only reason I'd like to see that on there is because that is a large group of homes that is on, it's kind of island off on its own. And when we're doing this is an engineering report, and I don't see us going back and doing more engineering on sidewalks just for a small portion.
It'd be more expensive to go back.
And also on top of that, we may not be doing it all in one chunk, but if we have an engineered report and if there's a grant available for us, we can actually submit that to the province or to the feds, and we can actually get those funding dollars. And I'd rather have a completed report for all the potential areas we can have sidewalks that we're wanting to see sidewalks than doing half of it.
Yeah, no good.
So, but I do agree, it's going to, when we go ahead and once we figure out the dollars, yes, we'll have to prioritize, and it'll take some time, but if we're at the beginning stages of this, and I wanna make sure that we have all the areas crossed off to make sure that we have the report done.
Well, because if the county gets involved on some of these roads too, we need to know what, if we're in for any of this too, right? So.
Yeah, cause the worst would be is, if, you know, with this, if we don't extend it to Butchery Creek, all those residents are gonna say, why did you bring a sidewalk down to Hickory Drive? It doesn't make any sense.
Where's it going?
Yeah.
I thought that was in the original request. No?
No.
Oh, I thought we talked about that, okay.
Okay. So Kathy, you go and talk with,
Driven.
and also the BM Ross. So specifically just talking with Driven, BM Ross, and also Spreets about adding on that additional section. Is there any other companies that we're wanting to still receive more information from?
I think three's lost.
Yeah, the other ones don't seem to be
Too many no's in their list.
no's, and the dollars, if you look just where they have it specified each thing, are kinda out of whack with the top three contenders.
Fear of getting what you pay for.
And just the only other section, just because I don't know the addresses though, for Central Road, I didn't hear about us talking about going north from 2nd Street towards the Tim Hortons property or any of those. And I don't know if that was.
That was not discussed in the budget time.
Maybe that better be with what's gonna maybe possibly happen there.
And then also with Dashwood Industries coming there as well, thinking with just the walkability of people wanting to
Go for lunch.
or go wherever.
Well, we have more information now than we did at budget time, so that changes the.
Might I add though that, the cost, once you need to establish which side of the road you're going to be on to start with, so this would at least give you which side, so having engineering done once we know which side of the road it's on is going to be a lot better than, like right now they're looking at everything, so once we've determined which side of the road council's going on, then it'll be easier to understand what to engineer the next section as well, because you already have that established, and right now there's a lot of unknowns and what's going to be present itself in regards to obstacles from just to 2nd Street. So once that's done, then the second section could get done.
Which is what they'll do.
From 2nd North, once they determine where it would go. Because the report is, the idea of this report is to bring you back information as it goes along in regards to the cost, in regards to the obstacles, whether you're going to be on the north or the south or the east or the west side of the road. So, adding that section once it's determined where the initial sidewalks are going to go, is something that council can review as we go along as well.
Makes sense.
I'm confused as to, so you're suggesting that we don't add on the section
North
north
of Second, no, not at this time. We wouldn't likely be until all the services are put in up there. We have that corner of Second Street with the site plan approved for the gas station at the corner. Once it's once it's developed, then it will be easier to know where the sidewalks are gonna go along there. So it will likely be, because the services aren't in now, so they would have to be engineered based on the services that will be going in off of Center Road and off Second Street into there.
So, I'm just thinking, maybe it's like shutting the gate after the horse is out, but if any of these developers should know ahead of time if there is gonna be sidewalks or potential, or what that engineering would look like, so that the opening could be correct.
There's no entrances
There's no-
on the
81?
corner of Second. The only
Okay.
entrance is the existing entrance off to the hotel site is the only entrance that's
Okay.
existing.
Where the
It's the
two
only one
cars?
that's going in there.
Okay,
There is not going to be a second entrance there.
okay. Good, so, no issue.
I would still, I know that you're suggesting that we should wait until we have the construction done, but with both the gas station property on the corner of 9 Second Street, there's a site plan, so they should know where all the services are going. And hopefully by the time,
That's right.
we should also, hopefully soon have the site plan approved and everything for the Tim Hortons property. So I think that we should have everything already in line, so we should know where it's going, and I think it's, in my opinion, very clear that it would go on the east side of Central Road, because that's where all the development is. And then in the future, when the west side gets developed, we would have a policy in place to make sure that any developer would be putting sidewalks in themselves. So I think it's very clear.
But we were also considering the west side of Center because of the petition from the residents at
That's where the
Evergreen.
residences
That was
are.
why both sides are being reviewed at this time, is to determine whether you're going to satisfy the residential part to walk or the commercial, so.
Did I miss something? Is the county not taking over Pike, or was there discussion about that?
It's just this, it's
We
just,
submitted Pike Road as
Potential kind of.
potential candidate to be looked at to be assumed for
Okay.
the county, but anything beyond the curb is municipal
like,
Oh, okay.
responsibility, so like sidewalks would still be ours.
Still under our jurisdiction, okay,
and Sanders.
alright.
Okay, so we have the direction then for Kathy. Okay. What would you like for a motion?
Kathy, do you need a motion for all that?
Yeah, we need some direction, because we're looking to have it awarded, so if we need to go back and get, more specification on the driven engineering, submission, as well as the cost to engineer the section from Second Street to Buttery Creek along Hickory Drive from the top 3 recommended, proposals.
And I would still like to see Center Road north of Second on there. Anybody's interested in that?
Actually, I think that makes sense.
Well, your engineering costs gonna be less when it's done all at the same
All
time.
at the same
So
time.
if you have to go back, it's,
And we are right now fairly under budget, so even as a bit to it, I mean, we're still well under budget right now.
there's room within the budget to do it in its entirety, that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
I agree.
We would hope so, anyway.
Okay. So moved by Councillor Brody,
second.
Seconded by Councillor Clark. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried.
Get this back in time to work on the budget.
Well, they responded fairly, nice.
And
So on the Center Road north from Second Street, how far?
to the actuators. And that section will be specifically on the east side, because I wouldn't think you'd have to look on the west side for doing anything.
That would just create a hazard.
Yeah.
Well,
And
she's
you're gonna
gonna be
need
putting
a
a
crosswalk,
crosswalk.
and all that stuff,
Yeah.
right, and that-
Yeah, I would state that just the east side.
From Second
From
to
Second
Asher.
to there.
But Amy's is on the other side, so.
People cross at the corner there.
They've got a light.
I already have the cook walking along the side, but along the gravel every day.
Okay. So, site manager report will have to.
No, we did that.
Okay, so that's the end of our staff reports. Do anything for other business at all?
Did we do that?
That's one we did.
So the site manager, we've already done that already,
And
from the closed session.
we're going to go into closed session
Yeah,
again.
after we have the other business. if there's anything. I get to proudly announce that I received the VIP award from the pond match again this year. Not 2 years ago, I forget the last time I won, but that was pretty exciting. So it was,
We were plowing.
no, it's the VIP
Oh,
class.
VIP,
So it's really not plowing.
Oh, okay.
So it was myself, Mayor Warwick, and Mayor DeVete, so from Thames Centre and Middlesex Centre is the ones that competed this year. It was a very low turnout this year, but that's okay. So we competed, and I just found out this afternoon in the County Council that I received first, and yeah, it's pretty exciting. Didn't actually think I'd get it, so there we go. If there's nothing else for other business, we're going to continue on with our closed session. And that's under section 239(2)B, I assume, which is the personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees.
Thanks a lot, Aaron,
Okay, thanks.
for educating me tonight.
Oh, Aaron did drop something.
Okay, so that's moved by Councillor McKinnon, and seconded by Councillor Brody. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah, you
so we just ended the closed session at 9:16, and we don't have any items for the Rise and report. Before we go to the bylaws, is there anything else for other business?
So I think we need to discuss what this is gonna look like on the 24th, and if we, what is it?
Forum.
Yeah, what this looks like. It's gonna be in the fire hall, have we decided, or no? Down here?
Yes, I hear.
So, okay, I'm thinking that's a different meeting than the special policy, right? That's totally.
They're all here.
We're all here, okay, all right. Yeah, so, and I don't know if the proper format is to specifically reach out to individuals to give them time to prepare and think about something. For example, reach out to the optimist. Reach out, I guess the firemen are actually employee bazaars, so that really wouldn't be relevant, but, you know, that somebody might wanna speak, like a fireman just as a volunteer may have some insight into, you know, maybe they need an extra bay or something that we don't know about. I don't know, I'm making that up, but just somebody.
Or the teams that play ball there.
Yeah, or,
So maybe we could reach out to those community organizations, so have it so then, instead of having 10 Optimist Club members, and that's
Exactly
to say,
that.
we're the same thing, maybe the Optimists should get together as a group and have something together, and then instead of calling it the volunteer firefighters individually, it would be the Firearms Association, I'm assuming they have a president or something, I don't know if it's the chief, I'm not sure, and that
And then I would
person.
also invite Parrish and Heimbachner and other, like, any of the businesses in the community that are stakeholders, I think that's valuable.
Yeah, the soccer club,
The guides,
Ball.
whatever.
yeah, all of those. That's what we're looking for, is, for the park and.
Cause we need to know what we're trying to service and what,
Yeah.
like, and you're not saying it's not gonna happen, but if everybody puts their wish list forward and what their vision is, or what their ask is, that can all be taken into consideration, because then as you move forward as a committee, maybe some of those stakeholders you want on that committee, not just council people.
I think at the end of the day, with the whole community hub and the whole discussion, is that what I foresee and what I hope that people will understand is that I don't want the whole discussion to be about what's currently there and how we can improve something, some simple little things. I would like it to be more of a bigger picture. What do you want to see and that type of thing, not where it's going to be or what's, that type of thing. I would rather have it so it's kind of that wish list
Blow
thing.
it up and just make it new, yeah.
Anything and everything needs to be thrown out there. I really don't want the discussion to be, well, we have the 2 pavilions here and we can convert the pavilion to this or we can do that. I would rather see as a wish list as, we would like to see a community hall and have it so it's large enough to do whatever it is, or we want a splash pad, or actual like real soccer pitches and that type of thing. Like
Or-
that's
We don't wanna spend that much money. Or, right?
Yeah, that's right, so, but
On
that's what
both
we
sides of
want,
the fence.
we want
Yeah.
a message from them,
But
right?
that's what
So-
we need
yeah.
to hear is kind of those ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to have all those out there so we can kind of figure out where.
And we might be able to come in with a common denominator that
Yeah. But I just
Half
think we
makes
need to make the request, so it's not a dead air meeting, that we have people on an agenda that are ready to speak, so that they can put their thoughts forward, and I'm sure they, like, not to pick on the optimists, but I'm sure they'd love the opportunity to put a pitch in, and say, if we won the lottery, this is what we want, or, no, we don't wanna spend any money, we just want this.
So I know they only
So-
have they'll have a meeting on, I just looked up, it'll be next Tuesday, cause they're always second and fourth, so there'll only be one meeting, and it's the first one of the year, before we actually have
Yeah.
this, so.
Who's the president?
Sarah Harris's.
Okay, so perhaps an email could be sent to her, but I think we need to be emailing some of the other stakeholders in the community.
Parrish and Heimbachner would be.
Yeah, and then also open it up at the end so that anybody else who that's not on the agenda and wants to bat or whatever. And then I don't know if there's like a square dancing club in there, like I don't know what's out there for community groups. I mean, we are a small township,
Not very
but,
much left.
yeah.
I mean, there is no ball, soccer's run by the Optimists.
And then we 4-H has been long gone
But
since
there
our
are,
kids
there
were
are,
little.
there's not a ball league,
No,
but
they
there are
just,
cats
they just kinda run.
pickup, but that's all we
A
did
lot
for
of them
20 years.
Yeah, a lot of them are from Strathroy, they just use our,
But I think that's a good idea to reach out to those ones and have specific times that they'll have it so then we have certain presentations or certain speakers
We know
at the
who
beginning.
rents it.
And then
Yeah,
after
and
that
then
have
you-
it open to anyone, public forum.
Yeah, cause would you reach out to someone like a Lyle Smith that rents it for
Sure.
licenses?
Sure.
And, like
Well,
Ontario
Dorman
Hydro,
Brothers, you better
Mhm.
know.
yeah, and like Cargill, because maybe they're looking for a venue where they can have a lunch for farmers and there's nothing suitable. Like, I don't know, like you have to just think big and throw it out to everybody to give them a chance. And if they don't respond, then they don't respond, but, sometimes you have to ask people.
That's a good idea. So,
And
Kathy and Jennifer wrote down someone else on that list.
So then who would be the scribe? Like, is it sort of thing like when you got flip charts where you're writing it all down, or just someone's taking notes, or you record the meeting?
We'll record the meeting the
Is
same
that-
as
that's a
what
lot
we did with
easier.
the May 21st
Good,
meeting.
because that takes the heat off you a bit, yeah.
Then do we need to get right on top of this committee idea? Who do we need on it? Who do we want on it?
Well,
How
I
many
would say,
people do we want on it?
what if you had a list, a sign-up sheet at the back saying if anybody wants to be on the committee? Because maybe you've got some retired school teacher that's got some great ideas that we didn't even know was interested. There's a gentleman that is a retired professor that lives in the community, and he's often said to me, if you ever need any help with IT or any of that stuff, I'd be happy to volunteer my time. So, you know,
I think as much as a recreation committee or a committee of whatever sort would be a great idea, I think with some of the other items that staff is looking into with this whole topic, I think it'll be hard to have some of, like, having a committee discuss kind of the
Just
path
the one
going down.
piece.
well, I think it would only be recreation, right? That you would have stakeholders from the community, because
Mhm.
obviously.
If you're developing the park in some
Yeah.
way, then you would get that kind of
Yeah,
input.
I think that's
Yeah, but you're
further
right, it's a
down the
bigger
road.
picture.
I think it's a further down the road when
Yeah.
we get to that point.
Might suggest after, if you take your information back after the 24th, you're planning on tentatively meeting on the 30th, you could do a recap and a summary then and determine what the best next course of action is, whether it be establishing a committee.
Yeah, because that's
whether
only a
just-
week later, right?
Yeah,
So,
and I think
I
that
think
was
we
the
can live with
intent
that.
too.
That sounds, that's
Yeah,
a reasonable
30.
timeline.
yeah, it's
That's
just
your
that we
next
have-
meeting,
Yeah,
so
we have a
we're-
deadline, so.
We're moving along, right?
Because then we'll have a good idea what the input was and feedback and participation level.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just thought we better talk about
Yeah.
that before.
Did we ever get any idea or any rough idea of what our properties are worth, what a new building is worth? Have we got anywhere with that?
That
Because
was-
without that, I mean,
If I may, we approve that in closed session.
oh,
Have you received that information?
Not yet.
No. Okay.
Okay.
That's integral in
It's
the
hard when you
conversation.
flip back and forth.
Mhm.
Doors open. Okay, is there anything else for other business? I think we're on the right track with the
Yeah, the
health
only other
discussion.
business I had was, are we paying for healthcare now? You were at emo.
There's a lot of changes that are happening with the Ontario Health Teams and paramedic services and the health units. So far, so I started off my morning at 9:30 at the county building with the EMS Authority Board, and there's the budget's looking different going forward, and I can't disclose any numbers or do anything like that, but they're putting together the 4-year budget cycle for the City of London, and it's hard. The portion that's coming from the province is
What we would expect.
Yeah.
Mhm.
so there'll be changes, and then they're even talking about community paramedicine and the Ontario Health Teams and how that's changing everything, and at the end of the day, people have to realize that some of the funding that's coming from the province, it's not guaranteed funding. Technically, a lot of the funding is grants, and that could just disappear. So, and we're not talking about thousands of dollars; we're talking about millions of dollars. Yeah.
The report said 30% of healthcare costs, so that's substantial.
George Sinker didn't wanna wait for his operation for a year through the health system. So he went to Quebec and had his hip replaced. And the surgeon came from the East Coast. Big bucks.
Is there anything else for other business? Seeing none, we do have two bylaws, and it's bylaw number 59 of 2019, memorandum of understanding with the Middlesex London Health Unit naloxone program, and bylaw number 60 of 2019, confirmed council proceedings, and the bylaw signed by the mayor and clerk and the corporate seal will be attached. Councilor McKinnon and Deputy Mayor Hendricks, all those in favor? Opposed, and that's carried. And if there's nothing else, a motion to adjourn at 9:28. Councilor Brody and Deputy Hendricks, all those in favor? Opposed.